Hello everyone, my name is Warren Kidd. I'm a senior lecturer here at the Cass School of Education Communities, University of East London. And I'm making this video really aimed at my trainee teachers on the secondary humanities and social science teacher education programmes here. But actually, I think this is a challenge that other people who access this video, maybe through Twitter, maybe through the blog, and other secondary students who I might come into contact with through our core module, it might be a challenge that you wish to take up as well. And it's a very simple ask, I think. So I'm making this video at the end of January. You've had a term of professional practice, and for most of you, a really intensive last half term just gone of learning how to teach and learning how to practice and learning how to learn as a professional learner. So we observe you. I'm making this video right at the point before I come and do the third observation of you all. Okay, so we've observed you all twice. And you've all got different targets, you have different weekly training plans, you will be producing different standards tracker documents. But within that, I think there are some things that we really can't lose sight of. So I promised you just before Christmas that I would make you some videos and some podcasts, and here's the kind of start of that process if you're not doing assignment 2. If you're doing assignment 2, then you've got a load of podcasts already from me. But I promised you some podcasts and some videos where we wouldn't lose touch with those really important aspects of pedagogy that we've been learning about and talking about and reflecting upon all of last term. So we're kind of conscious that you now have some time on your own with your mentors in placement 1 and again with your mentors in placement 2. Depending when you start that placement 2, and really don't want to lose sight of some absolutely essential kind of building blocks of our professional craft practice. So I give to you the 6 lesson challenge, and you might be able to guess just the horror of what's about to come up. I think there are 6 really crucial things for you to get right, and I'd now like to challenge you to have a lesson over the next kind of 3 or 4 weeks, over the next month, where you absolutely explicitly focus on one of those 6 things. I'm about to show you what they are. And you deliberately go into that lesson with that one thing in mind and really focus on planning and delivering a successful learning experience based on that element of effective practice. And that becomes for you a source for reflection in your reflective journals, which I hope you're still keeping. And it also becomes a source for professional conversation amongst us all when we regroup in about 3 weeks' time, but also when we regroup at the end of the year as well. So absolutely focusing on 6 things, and those 6 things are what we then talk about when we come back together, and it's a lesson per thing. Now you're still going to have your individual targets, you've still got your weekly training plans, so this is just a little kind of fun intervention to refocus and remind you of some of the really important messages that we've had in our programme over the past kind of few weeks. Now I promised you a peer experience, a joint team talk experience, and we're about to start organising that. So I'm going to come and observe you number 3, and then I'm going to come and team teach with you number 4. So we would sit down together, we would meet, we would plan a lesson, and we would deliver it together as colleagues, working and reflecting and teaching together. And that's going to be observation number 4. And maybe you might want to have one of these 6 things as the focus of that lesson. So you might want to do 5 of them yourself, and you might want to leave one of them for us to plan together. And that would be a really good thing to do. So here they are. Here are your 6 things. Challenge number 1 is to reduce teacher talk. I think that's really crucial. Now I know you're all working on it, and I know you're all doing that in different ways, and we also know that some things do need to be talked through and explained. But I'd like you now to plan a lesson where absolutely explicitly your focus is to reduce teacher talk almost as far as you can go with that, and see what that's like, and see what that feels like, and see how that works for you. That's challenge number 1. You can see where we're going with this. Challenge number 2 is this here: technology enabled learning. Now if you're doing assignment 2, and there's only 3 of you who are doing assignment 2, but if you're doing assignment 2, you kind of have to engage with this anyway. But I'm worried about those of you who are not doing assignment 2 now, because I still need you, and I still think you should engage with a technology enabled learning experience. So I would like you, as challenge number 2, to plan a lesson which absolutely is about technology enabled learning, either before the lesson, and maybe you're flipping the classroom, during the lesson, maybe as homework after the lesson, maybe as building up to something longer term at another time, but something where technology is crucial to the success of the learning, and more importantly is the right choice in the learning. Challenge number 3: a whole lesson where questioning of learners, of you, 2 learners of you, of learners to each other, of learners back to you, with as many different ways of asking questions and as many different ways of developing conversation and thinking time and stretching and challenging learners through questions as you possibly can. Now I know that some of you really value questioning as a technique, and I know that many of you are already beginning to play around with it, and you have targets on it from lesson observations. But another refocus please, a whole lesson where you really explore questioning and what it can offer for you. That's challenge number 3. We're halfway through. Challenge number 4, an inquiry lesson. So we talked about this a lot, and some of you really are doing them. A lesson where students ask themselves the question to answer and work through sources, be it RE, sociology, geography, psychology, history. They work through sources to develop a hypothesis and a set of questions which they then answer at the end of the lesson or the 2 lessons or whatever it is. And you plan a lesson positioned around an inquiry, and you develop sources and materials and different kind of bits and bobs that learners need to engage with, and you reduce what you do and you increase their active engagement in moving and manipulating materials and sources and conceptual ideas around the classroom. That's challenge number 4. Challenge number 5, a good old refocus on assessment for learning. Now you might need to go back and read some of this, because I think some of this is so ingrained in some of your practices you might forget it is assessment for learning because you're just focused and doing it already and valuing it. So a whole lesson where you try and demonstrate as much as possible ipsative and formative assessment and feed forward and peer marking to move learning forward for the next lesson. We need many different strategies that you can possibly do that make sense and that are meaningful. Not a lesson that's completely crowded, but a lesson that's meaningful but really focused on assessment for learning. And finally, challenge number 6, a thinking classroom or a thinking lesson. So a lesson that really explores students developing thinking skills stretching, inquiring, asking questions, maybe de Bono's 6 thinking hats, maybe group work where they have to undergo that kind of period of sort of cognitive discomfort where you shift and shake something they've believed and perceived to be true and ask them to think about something they already know from a completely different viewpoint, but something that shocks and shakes and thinks and reflects. And that's challenge number 6. Now, all those things you will find resources on in Moodle on our previous lessons up until Christmas. None of those are surprises to you, I hope, of the things we hold dear and feel are important in your kind of craft practice. So let's now just play this game where we refocus on those things by absolutely dedicating a lesson where it's the right choice and where it's appropriate to really exploring those 6 themes. You could combine them. So you could do 4 lessons, maybe where a couple of the lessons are made up of more than one of those things. So it could be, for example, a technology enabled lesson which is also a thinking lesson, or it could be an inquiry lesson which is also a reducing teacher talk lesson. So you can do all 6, but you have to do all 6 even if you're not doing it as 6 separate lessons. And I'm really looking forward to reading those journals and talking to you and communicating with you. And when I meet you and observe you, I'm really looking forward to you telling me how that refocus has helped your practice. Now, I'm sure the last thing you feel you need is me coming along and, surprise, here's a challenge. But I don't think it's an insurmountable challenge. I think it's simply about reforming and reminding ourselves of practice that you kind of should be doing and should be experimenting and exploring with. But hopefully that's just a fun little nice way of presenting and packaging that to you. So I really hope you engage with this, and what I'm now going to ask you to do is to, on the basis of this email, that's not true, on the basis of this video, send me an email and tell me which ones you're really interested in, which ones you're worried about, which ones you're going to be starting with first, and also tell me which ones you want to know more about from me. Because actually, if you feel you don't know enough about one of those 6 areas, now's the time to ask for help. And we can do an intervention, and we can sit down, have a meet, have a tutorial, whatever we need to do, and go through that with you, because they really are crucial areas for your practice. So I hope this helps. You now have your challenge, and good luck.